Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual launch of the Community Conversations project. I'm Gail O'Donnell. I'm the Executive Officer of HealthWest Partnership, and I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. For me, this is the people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend this respect to other Aboriginal people who have joined us today. I recognise the ongoing living culture of all Aboriginal people, and I express commitment to Aboriginal self-determination and my hope for reconciliation and justice. HealthWest is the primary care partnership in Melbourne's West, and for the last few years, we've been exploring the importance of economic inclusion for health. Work with our members, communities and partners has culminated in the release of the Community Conversations report this morning. The report release is very timely as we recognise that people from migrant and refugee backgrounds have worse employment experiences, and that COVID-19 has impacted greatly on the communities in the West, not only in infection rates but also job losses. Before we start today, I just would like to do some housekeeping. Just to say that we have just a few things that need to be thought about, that you can chat using the chat room facility, and also if you have any technical difficulties, please use the blue button on the right-hand side of the screen. We have over 100 people joining us today, and that really shows us how many people are interested in trying to provide more equitable opportunities for people from migrant refugee backgrounds. So I look forward to hearing from you during the course of the launch, but I would start now by introducing our first panellist, Trinh Nguyen.
Hi, my name is Trinh. I came to Australia about 10 years ago as an overseas student, and yeah, it's a big pleasure for me to join in this report of the community today.
Welcome, Trinh, and thank you for sharing your lived experience and the community perspective to this morning's launch. Trinh, I really would like to just start by asking you why you decided to actually participate in the project.
Sure, because our challenges, limitation or discrimination are not something that I can share everywhere or in any conversation, especially if these are to be shared with local people. They might not feel it as difficult as how I feel. Some might even ask, so why do you come to Australia then? And now in this project, there is people who care about this, who want to listen about this. The project make me feel more comfortable to share without the thought of getting offended. So this is such a perfect time for me to speak up what I have been through, what I've witnessed from myself, my colleagues, and people I know.
Thank you, Trin. What do you hope might come out of the report?
First of all, it's mental health. I hope there will be an organization that has migrant women who are experienced and successful in their life, who is willing to talk and share. Talking to them will give me more confidence, lift up my spirit and positive mindset. Like I can do it because other women like me can do it. And secondly, it's I hope there's a platform or agent who specialize in jobs for women like us. For example, they know employers who has a multicultural workplace or employers who need bilingual languages people. If there's not such an agent, we might not know these employers, they might not know us, and that's where the unemployed migrants are from.
Trin, that's great. And can you tell us, if you had one key message to give to decision makers, what might that be?
I hope the report will attract organizations and employers in having better support and strategies for migrant women. From my experience, it's hard for us to think about career pathway or dream job. I can see that there's a high percentage of migrants who are doing physical job, even though a lot of us came as an overseas student, some even came with qualifications, and some might have achieved a good career back in their home country already. I've seen people who has a master degree that does dishwasher job, and obviously it's not the job that they are dreaming of, but they have to because we don't have a lot of choices. As long as there's a job, we will have to take that job.
Thank you, Trin, and thank you for sharing your lived experience with the audience this morning. Unfortunately, Trinh Nguyen was unable to join us today, so I'm going to read her statement to the audience. I decided to participate in this project since I also came from a culturally diverse background and have experienced many barriers to getting a job. As an international student who has only lived in Australia for around 3 years, I've had a challenging time navigating the job market, from a lack of understanding about the job seeking process to not knowing what the employer's expectations are, and to also having a lack of skill and support. It made me reflect on the importance of having a job. It would give me a sense of purpose. I feel like there is a lack of support and resources for people like myself who have just recently settled in Australia, particularly with migrants and refugees. With my work and educational background, I also have a keen interest in research and how research findings can influence decision makers. So I was very lucky to work with Julian conducting the interviews and analysing themes based on the participants' responses. For this report, I hope to improve employment outcomes for people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. And in this research report, I am speaking specifically about migrants in the west of Melbourne. This can be improved in a variety of ways, providing paid training opportunities, paid internships, free career educational workshops and seminars for migrants, and so on. With these changes in policies, there would be less structural barriers for migrants when it comes to employment, improving their overall well-being and financial situations. I hope decision makers can consider these circumstances and create more opportunities for migrants to improve their employability. We wish Trinh well, and Trin will join us again when we have the Q&A section. I'd like now to welcome Dr. Regina Torres-Quiazon and Julian Smith. Regina is from the Multicultural Centre for Women's Health, and Julian is from the Centre for Multicultural Youth. Welcome.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
It's great to have you both with us, and today is a really exciting time for us all as we launch the report. But I'd just like to ask you both a few questions just to have an understanding of what the project and the report has brought forward in your organisations. So I'd like to ask, what was it like to be part of the process? Perhaps Regina, you'd like to take that question first.
I guess we were very excited that HealthWest Partnership had approached us to be part of the project. And I guess it became even more exciting in a kind of, rise to the challenge way when we came into lockdown, and it just put us all into action in terms of thinking about just how urgent some of the issues we were looking into were at the time, especially with COVID. But we were very confident in terms of the intersectional approach that we use, because we see that is very important in terms of looking at the power dynamics and the structural disadvantages that people from migrant backgrounds experience in employment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think on our end it was, we experienced, it was such a collaborative effort, not just in terms of our partnership with HealthWest and Multicultural Centre for Women's Health, but also internally at CMY. Our involvement with the project really took in various parts of CMY to help contribute to the project. So we had the Explore team with young researchers involved, which is where Fung is from, and also our policy team as well. And so I think that, that value of all that collaboration can clearly be seen in this report when you read through it. And so CMY, we were actually thrilled to be a part of it. It's really great.
Yeah, and it was also the first time that each of our organisations had worked together. So I think it's a testament to the fact that it really is good to have a collaboration where we have particular expertise that we can bring to the project. So that was a great aspect.
Yes, I think the opportunity to work together for all of us was fantastic, and because our alignment of strategy was there, seemed to all fit very well together when we worked. Was there something that your organisation found particularly insightful or new?
Look, from our perspective, the findings echoed similar findings in recent reports, such from the COVID Insights paper that looked at the impacts of COVID-19 and our responses to it for young multicultural Victorians. And CMY's Locked In, Locked Out report that also explored particular challenges of the impacts of COVID on young multicultural Victorians is that many of the responses and the feedback that was given really mirrored a lot of that. It also tied in, it was also very similar to what we'd been hearing on the ground anecdotally through our youth services teams. I think what is during that time, and I suspect still now, is that, the overarching theme of COVID was really increasing and impacting and, I suppose, compounding all those issues, and particularly issues such as discrimination and digital divide.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Julian as well. Unfortunately, the findings really didn't bring up anything new that we hadn't already come across, especially in the centre's work in the last 40 years, especially in relation to stories about racism and discrimination as well. And the work that we did with the Equality at Work project with migrant aged care workers that we did recently really reflected a lot of the things that we found in this project as well. So a lot of issues around inequality, and Trinh had also highlighted the issues around those migrants on temporary visas as well. So apart from hearing these particular stories, I think it's really that the strength of the project is really about the lived experiences of those from migrant backgrounds have really taken centre stage in the report, and that comes across quite strongly, I think. So I think if lived experience is really where we need to start from if we want to enable structural change. So I think that was something, I think it shouldn't be a new thing, but in terms of the finished report, I hope that will just get people into action in reading about these stories and the recommendations as well.
Yes, I think the power of people talking about their lived experience just really creates some urgency for us all too, I think, because it's such a real experience. And I think I agree with you, Regina, that's the power of the report, that it's full of people's lived experiences. Thank you. And what do you hope might come out of the report?
Look, I think long term, what we all want to achieve and should be aiming for is really equitable employment outcomes for all. And what this really means is that we need to prioritise and provide adequate, or I'd say sustainable funding to those people who actually require tailored support. And the report goes into that in quite a bit of detail, and Trinh has already highlighted some of those recommendations. It might be using more bilingual services, for example, to support women in the job hunt. But that's long term. In the short term, I'm hoping that some of the recommendations that are outlined in the report are taken up at the organisational level, whether that be, whether that's policy and processes in the workplace. But I think more immediately, I'm hoping those who are tuned in to the launch now, but if you haven't as yet read the report, I urge you to read it and to perhaps just reflect on some of the stories and the recommendations. We have used an intersectional approach, meaning that we are aiming for structural change. And I think sometimes when we talk about structural change, that can be quite overwhelming. But I think we are all part of that system, that structure, and we do all have a part to play in changing parts of that structure. So I think we can be hopeful that this report will go into some small way in enacting change.
Yeah, I agree, and I really hope it marks sort of the urgency and highlights the need for cross-sector collaboration. Is that we're really reaching out and we're speaking with employers, different community services, community legal services as well. That we really think about taking this discussion into other areas as well. I think that the themes in the report have obviously been identified through the stories that have been told have obviously been standing, but I think now there is a space to really progress towards addressing some of these issues in the post-COVID environment. And hoping that the report adds to some momentum for some further advocacy around tailored support and addressing the digital divide and increasing work experience opportunities. And I think it also highlights the need for, you know, an anti-racism strategy in Victoria that targets employers and education settings as much as it does the community as well.
Thank you both. Yes, I think that at HealthWest we are always looking to improve the system, and I think this work will require action from a lot of different sectors and a lot of joined up action that will, you know, it's not going to be one area that needs work. And I think we can see that in the recommendations, that they're very broad, but we're hoping that people can see where they might fit and where they might actually be able to take action, either personally or within their organisation, lead action, and even seek out some partners to work with to, you know, really be able to advocate and see the transformational change that we've been hoping for a long time.
Yeah.
Thank you. We might ask Trin to join us again and see if we've got any questions that have come from the audience. Welcome back, Trin. Okay. I'm going to pose a question to start with. One that I know that we're all challenged sometimes by, and that's, how do we tackle this change from a strengths-based approach rather than actually from a deficit model? Perhaps, Regina, I'm going to ask you to start because I know this is something you're very passionate about.
I guess, yeah, the answer is in the question. So exactly that way, to adopt a strengths-based approach. And I think that, you know, the main recommendation I can give in relation to that is really we should be facilitating and supporting opportunities for women from migrant backgrounds to advocate on the issues. So I think that's very important, that women themselves lead the change. So we know, and Julian, you've highlighted the fact also that COVID has had a disproportionate impact on migrant women especially, and even pre-COVID, we already knew that, you know, migrant women are highly represented in low-paid, low-status job sectors. And this is something that we need to acknowledge. And in order to change that, I think we should be supporting women in those sectors, giving them the opportunities to advocate for change.
And Julian or Trin, would you like to add anything about taking a strength-based approach to our work?
Look, I suppose I'd just quickly add to that to say, I mean, over the years working with so many young people is that, you know, I think I've seen why we're constantly seeing and hearing the strength of young people and their resilience. So I think that it is just so important that it is about listening, it's about opening up opportunities, it's about taking a stance that doesn't assume anything, and sort of enabling you know, the wishes, the goals, and the perspectives of young people. So I think in terms of how to do that, I think that it is about making space, and it's about putting forward the stories and moving with that.
Thank you. And Trin, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think that's spoken everything that I was thinking of as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I remind the audience that they can ask questions and by using the chat box? We look forward to having some questions from the audience. If an organisation was just beginning its journey, where should it start? Julian, perhaps you can.
Yeah, sure. So I think if starting a journey, I think I think first seeing what's out there and who's out there, what's already around, and I suppose and getting in touch and having those conversations. I think just building off the last question, it is about listening to people's stories around who you want to target and where the change is supposed to be affected. So I think that's the key to it.
Gail, I wasn't sure whether that question was in relation to organisations like ourselves, or are we talking about organisations from an employment point of view in terms of recruitment, retention?
Yes, I was thinking about how we started our journey at HealthWest with the workforce mutuality standards, and just how the standards can help you undertake an audit of your workforce and give you like a baseline really to help you understand your workforce. And that was the start of our journey in the economic inclusion for health space, just providing a set of standards that enabled organisations to actually audit their own organisation and see how they were doing as far as their diversity of their workforce. I think sometimes that can be a surprise to people, and we know that this will help to provide employment for people from diverse backgrounds, but also make sure that your organisation is much more culturally safe. And so people from culturally and diverse backgrounds are more likely to want to be seeking services from your organisation. So I think this is part of that broader system about how we actually look at all the aspects of the system and try and make changes in all of the parts of the system.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good place to start, Gail, in terms of looking at organisational policy and practices, because you may not even have some policies in place. So just making sure that practices in the workplace or in your organisation, you not only have a diverse workforce, but you also have inclusive policies as well as equitable policies. So they're all very different, but we need to ensure that those three factors are in place. Yeah, and it's a good start.
Yep. Now we do have a question from the audience. What is the unique value that your organisation or your organisation's experience is bringing to the report and collective insight? Julian?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I suppose, given that we were a partnership, I mean, we all came with, different experiences. I think with the Centre for Multicultural Youth, we work in a number of different areas and have been in the sector for about 30 years. And so I suppose we brought, the experience of young people to the table with the with the inclusion of our Explore team, which is youth researchers who participate in the design, the feedback, and the process of that research. So it means that at every step of the way, when we're going through that process, there is input from a youth researcher. But I think we also have a lot of experience with, I suppose, just hearing these stories over the years and working directly with these issues as well. So advocating with young people on the ground around, better access to things and better opportunities. And and I suppose just working in a number of forums in a number of different ways with young people, with a number of different partners.
Thank you. Trin, we have a question for you and a comment in saying thanks for sharing your experience. Trin, what do you think organisations are not doing enough of to support migrant workers?
Yeah, I guess all the business, all the organizations now has really good policy for being fair about race, about different color on people. But the fact is that there are a lot of hidden discrimination that's going on. For example, at my workplace, so I work in the hotel. There it's frontline people where they contact with a lot of guests directly. There it's back of house people where they do indirectly contact to guests. And I can see that the back of house percentage of people is mostly migrant people and also people with Asian background, in a dark skin color. And at the front line people is mostly people with like white people and people who can speak English fluently. And I find that it's not fair from the organizing point of view. They might want to look for people with English fluently. They might want people with good appearance that they can attract more guests, more clients. But it doesn't mean that people with migrant background doesn't have good experience in those jobs. They might have good idea, they might have good opinion as well, but they just can't really express them as good as those people that have perfect English or already good appearance. And eventually it makes the organization become like that. So it's the whole difference word of the front of house and the back of house. I'm not saying it's 100% difference, but it's the fact that everyone can say but no one can say anything.
Thank you, Trin.
Yeah, and I think you've touched on a very good point. Yeah, in terms of having organisations need to have a look at their workplace culture, in terms of the stereotypes they might hold about particular groups of people as well. So.
Julian, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, look, just on that, I agree that I think this is often the feedback we've been hearing from young people as well, is that and this I think really came through in the report as well, is that sort of being pushed to the side. I think one participant articulated that they were just sort of frozen out of the workplace as well, in terms of that they just weren't spoken to. So yeah, I suppose just echoing what Regina just said around workplace culture is really important, as well as the policies and procedures that are in place to address those things.
Yes, I think we've all seen organisations that have all the policies and procedures, but perhaps the culture and the values don't align with the policies and the procedures. And, here's a couple of other good questions here. Do we have any examples of good practice happening in the West to support people with migrant and refugee experience into employment? And what do we need more of? Perhaps Regina?
Just to sort of, I suppose, clarify, I mean, it would depend on that. I mean, if the, and just going back to the report too, because the report focused, I mean, and a lot of the participants were saying too, it was around entering and finding work as opposed to then having the job. I think in terms of finding employment, I think there are examples of programs that are successfully assisting young people with multicultural backgrounds find work, and that are achieving good things in good results in doing that, or some results in doing that. I think that broader challenge is I think the things that we've just mentioned around workplace practice once the young person does actually get that job. I think that still remains a bigger challenge.
Regina?
I was just about to add, I mean, the second part of that question is what do we need more of? And I think we have to say we need more support in terms of more sustainable funding. So if we want systemic change to happen, programs need to be in place, for example, women's leadership, to help support women re-enter the workforce, to stay in the workforce, to upskill as well. And these are issues that we'll raise in the report.
Thank you. What is the role of community to bring about change? Do you think there will be some advocacy that will come from this report launch? Regina?
Well, I think, as I've been saying, it's really important for communities to lead that change. And I guess organisations like HealthWest and Centre for Multicultural Youth, I'm hoping this is the beginning of a collaborative partnership, and that we could perhaps attract other organisations who might be listening to the launch now to come and contact us, so that we could provide that support for communities to do that much needed advocacy. We need to work together. I mean, obviously they can't do it on their own. And I think all our organisations, at least we have the infrastructure and some of the expertise to help champions like Trin and Paul, who couldn't be with us today, to begin that community advocacy.
Yeah, I agree. I think we definitely need sort of a cross-sector approach. We need to be reaching out to employers. We need to be reaching out to a range of different organisations and health services as well. I think we need to be thinking really broadly around how we look at this and and bring further people in to continue advocating.
Thank you. And Trin, how can people with lived experience be part of this advocacy campaign?
Yeah, I guess something like the report that we are doing, it's great to start. We have people calling migrant women and talking to them privately. This is a great way to hear their most honest feedback and all the hidden barriers that they can't really speak up at work, and they can really talk to us through the phone, and that's where we get to get some awesome ideas. And from there, I think organization has the idea to know what changes are needed. And yeah, I'm sure people who get interviewed privately will have some great idea to share, just like how you did interview me.
Thank you, Trin. And I think it's good to finish, with the community perspective. And thank you for those great questions. We obviously couldn't answer all of them, but it was just great to have them come in. So I think really it's nearly time for us to wrap up the launch. So I'm going to officially launch the Community Conversations report. It is available to be able to download from the HealthWest website, and I would certainly encourage the audience to share this with others and to really have a really great look at some of the participants' comments and particularly some of the solutions which I think that we can activate. So I want to say thank you to all the panellists, Regina and Julian and Trin and Fung, who was going to join us, but unfortunately couldn't today. I really am grateful for and sharing their experience and their insights and their knowledge and working with us during quite a difficult year last year, but we managed to complete the project, and it's really very exciting to be launching it today. The recommendations in the report are very broad and really do cover the four kind of themes that we think where the system needs to change. That's strategy and policy development, workplace settings, program and service requirements, and advocacy and promotion. And my call to action, and it's the call of my panelists today too, is that you find your role and responsibility in the system and ask what you can do or your organisation can do to be part of the change that we all want to see. If you're interested in talking to us more, please reach out to us and make contact. I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. We, as I said, had over 100 people register, which is fantastic and creates a list of people that we can also reach out to as well. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Thank you. Bye for now.